Hi, this is Tim, and I'm cooking from Bread Illustrated, the book from America's Test Kitchen. This is the 8th recipe, butter fan rolls. You can see what they're supposed to look like when they're done. It's a simple recipe, but it's got some complicated assembly instructions. But we begin by making a standard dough, just like the one that we did in the last episode. So there's flour, yeast, and salt in the bowl, added the liquid ingredients that included milk, egg, melted butter, and sugar, and mixed that until it formed a cohesive dough. Rolled it out onto a floured board. And you can see that we just take that dough and give it about a 30-second knead to make it form a nice taut little ball with a nice skin across the top. Roll it in your hands. And this recipe really is all about the technique of assembling the rolls. But there's the dough finished, and it's going in a lightly greased container. And cover it and let it sit for about 2 hours. And now, after that time, it's about doubled in size. I'm going to turn it out very gently. The dough's got a lot of nice air inside, and I want to retain that. I'm going to press it out. This dough needs to be rolled into a giant rectangle. They want it finished, according to the instructions, to be 15 inches by 12 inches, and the side that's parallel to the edge of the counter should be 15 inches long. So using a rolling pin, and again, being very gentle, we're going to roll from the center out. I'm applying the pressure when I get to the center of the dough. And it's a little bit oblong now, but the idea is that by slowly working the dough with the rolling pin, paying attention to those corners, and you can use the rolling pin in such a way that those corners are going to get squared out. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to trim it here in a minute so that it ends up being pretty darn close to 15 inches by 12 inches. But the dough's really forgiving. It rolls out really nicely. And yeah, I used a ruler. The mat that I'm on has got markings as well, but I like to make things pretty precise. So I use a ruler, and then I use the ruler to cut the edge of the dough, because why not? I had it in my hand and I was measuring, and so cut the excess, which I put off to the side, but I'm not throwing that away. Don't you worry. This is the first time I've made this recipe, so I'm just figuring it out as I go. I think I'll make it again. The rolls turned out really well. You'll see here in a minute. And again, it was pretty straightforward. There wasn't anything too complicated about the dough. Now I'm going to mark every 2 inches on the shorter side, the 12-inch side. And yeah, and then I'll mark the other side as well, the same 2-inch intervals. And then here I'm using a pizza wheel. It's a silicone pizza wheel, so it doesn't cut my silicone mask or the counter that's below it. And I just use that wheel to cut all the way across. So I end up with 6 strips that are 2 inches wide. And now we're going to butter these strips. I don't know why I started with the second one. Should have started with the bottom one, but that's all right. We're going to butter the top of 5 of these and leave the last one unbuttered. That way you've got it unbuttered. You'll see. So I was trying to figure out, how should I get this? What am I going to do? Oh yeah, just pick it up. Rolling this out on top of the silicone, I didn't have to put any flour down. The dough's got quite a bit of butter in it, so it didn't stick. It was very easy to handle. I was really surprised. I thought I was going to have a mess, but it worked out really well. Now that they're all stacked, I'm using the back of the knife to just push through, cutting these into 2.5-inch lengths. So they're 2 inches wide, and 2.5 inches long. So 2.5 times 6 is 15, obviously. So there'll be six. I made half a recipe. I didn't make the whole recipe. And I'll put the ingredients and the amounts in the description. But I really recommend you, if you're interested in learning how to bake bread, as I am, and as I'm helping my granddaughter, I really recommend you get this book. America's Test Kitchen did a fantastic job explaining all the steps. They've got a really great introduction. The first 30 pages or so of the book are a very detailed introduction to baking. It's just a great tutorial. And so the first, I guess, dozen or so recipes in the book kind of take you through each of the things that you can bake. Give you an example of all the different techniques that are available, and then the rest of the book expands on that. So I stacked them in sideways, covered them with some butter, put them aside to rest and rise for another hour and a half to 2 hours. And this is what they look like fully risen. You can see that they're standing way up above the pan. And the scraps are there in the two ends of the pan. And when they baked up, they all look pretty good. I put more butter on them after they came out of the oven, because why not? And here's one out of the pan, nice and crisp, flaky as all get out, separate really easily. Nice soft roll. These are butter fan rolls from the book Bread Illustrated by America's Test Kitchen. Thanks.